our Almighty God, Creator of heaven and earth, Father and lover of our soul, you sit on your throne of mercy and rule with your love and faithfulness. You are full of grace. We acknowledge your presence in our lives. Nothing is hidden in your eyes, even our challenges and struggles in life. We come to you with faith. We ask not only for our daily spiritual bread, but to seek your forgiveness and undeserving favor to heal our land, our family members, our friends and neighbors, even our enemies with COVID-19 and other diseases. Holy Spirit, help us to deepen our faith and see the opportunity to believe, obey, and worship. As we face this pandemic, you are Lord and God. Encourage us and change our hearts, not to fear, but to be full of hope and find ourselves praying and meditating your word. We believe no works of the enemy prosper to your children. Abba, Father, we believe that your Son Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior. He is the truth and our salvation. Hear our prayers, O Lord, and most of all, not our will, but thy will be done. We pray this in Jesus' name, the name above all names, who was and is to come. Amen.
Naghahatid saya sa mga Pinoy, mga kanta at programang Tatak Pinoy. Napapanood at napapakinggan kahit saan ka man. Streaming worldwide. In South Manila, this is V81 Radio.
Malayo ka man sa iyong pamilya, dito ay hindi ka nag-iisa. Tiyak ito'y iyong hahanap-hanapin, dahil ito ang nagpapasaya sa atin. Ito ang radio ko, V81 Radio, V81 Radio. Dahil mahal namin kayo, V81 Radio, V81 Radio. Para sa inyo ito, V81 Radio. Ito ang paborito ng bawat Pilipino. Basta all hits, all Pinoy, panalo. Merong kwentong iyakan at tawanan, kahit nasaan ka man ito'y mapapakinggan.
V81 Radio, V81
The views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the program anchors and producers and do not necessarily reflect the policies and position of this station. Discover the best kept secrets in metaphysics, law of attraction, science, and spirituality, and listen to practical mystics from around the world. Let's open Pandora's box with Reverend Reg Stan, your metaphysical minister, here in Practical Magic, your practical mystic source, only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Satnam, everyone. I am Reverend Reg, and it's another Sunday for Practical Magic where we talk about your goals and your big vision for this 2021. And that's what we started discussing last week for the first Sunday of January 2021. And because we know that we really want to experience our goals and, whatever it is that you'd like to receive here on your left, this is actually the side for receiving. I'll explain it more later towards the end of the show. And this is also the side on your right where you would like to understand how do you utilize your spiritual and material assets so that you can move closer to the outcome or the vision or the goals that actually make up that big vision you'd like to achieve this 2021. So last week we talked about how actually our relationships can help us expand and grow easily and move closer to the outcomes that we want, or how they can actually limit us. So last week we ended the show towards not being able to build a belief in yourself, a belief in what you're doing and what you're actually capable of delivering, and not being able to be put down by what others think of what you can do or cannot do. So I'm excited to share with everyone that my guests last week, Dr. Yolanda Dukes, Reverend Adam Hayden, and Reverend Tina Potts, they're all back here today so that we can talk more about it. But before we discuss further, I just want to invite everyone to simply close your eyes and let's practice these affirmations. All right, so rub both palms vigorously and just use the right palm to touch the heart so that you can feel the power of your words. Together, let's affirm, I love myself for all that I was, all that I am, and all that I want to become. I am worthy because God made me so. I love myself for all that I was, all that I am, and all that I want to become. I am worthy because God made me so. I love myself for all that I was, all that I am, and all that I want to become. I am worthy because God made me so. Take a deep breath in and out. Gently open your eyes. Satnam, everyone. I know it's been an interesting week in the United States of America. So, Satnam, Dr. Dukes, Reverend Adam, and Reverend Tina, how are you all doing?
Hi.
Hi.
It's
Good
so nice
morning,
to have
everybody.
good morning. It's nice to have the three of you back here in the show.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, so we've been watching the news and just catching up with whatever it is that that's being fed to us here in V81 Radio. So how is it now? Because we know that it's been an interesting week in the United States.
Interesting is probably a great word.
I might have an unconventional point of view. None of that has anything to do with me.
Yeah.
All right, who wants to go first? Because we want to hear your metaphysical perspective, Dr. Dukes, on what's happening.
Yeah, none of it has anything to do with me.
Yeah.
None of it.
Yeah. So how is the collective so far reacting to the situation?
It's a great revealing. I mean, that's the point where we have reached. It's a great revealing. I am thankful and happy to see that things are coming to light. It's some darkness, it's some hard things to swallow. But again, personally, it has nothing to do with me. So dwelling on it does me no good, none
Yeah.
whatsoever. It's like looking into an alternate reality.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Dr. Dukes, because I'm sure people are also curious because in metaphysics, we say that we're actually looking at appearances very differently from conventional thinking. So, how about you, Reverend Tina? How is the situation? Uh, what's your insight about everything that's happening now in your place?
It took me a couple of days to get back to where Dr. Dukes is at right now. But at first, it really put me back in like fight mode. Not necessarily what I saw was very revealing. I mean, as Dr. Dukes was saying, it's the underbelly that's being exposed, and you know, I know that. The part that I think bothered me a lot is still the continuation of how things are reported in the media. I believe that the media has a lot of control on how people react and how people look at things. So the way that they pose headlines, the
Yeah.
way that and all of that really needs a little bit more consistency. So I was very outspoken about that during the first couple of days. And then, as Dr. Duke said, for me, I needed to get back on track to understand that it's none of my business. I needed to get back to the point of understanding that I have more control of my own reality than that,
Yes.
and that I do not allow anything else to have any type of power or dominion over me. And I was starting to give it too much power. So I remembered to turn away.
Thank you so much for that, Reverend Tina. You know, it's so interesting what you mentioned because something similar happened to the Philippines during the lockdown. And we know that the media has very powerful influence on the collective. But I'm also part of the Heart Math Institute, where we talk about, you know, one of the best ways that we can move forward from anything that seems chaotic and confusing in the collective is to remain in our power, realizing that there's a situation, but you can replace fear with managed concern so that you can take efficient and effective steps to move forward. So, you know, in the Philippines, I have some followers, and a lot of people also wonder why I have very optimistic views or why I keep on insisting on certain things like meditating every day or praying every day, even for just a few minutes, because I know that we also have the choice to live by design, regardless of what's happening. And that's why I'm so grateful that the three of you are here because I know that you can actually help me explain it more to the collective that we have power over circumstances, regardless of what we see on media. So thank you for that, Dr. Dukes and Tina, Reverend Tina, and Reverend Adam. So, how about you? How do you feel about the things that are happening now in your place?
Um, I'm kind. It's kind of bittersweet to me because, as I mentioned a few times in other interviews, I've seen this stuff from a very young age, and so it's more. I don't want to say that I'm tooting my own horn because I believe very strongly that by speaking what I've seen, I don't want to come off as, Adam, you were right. I've
Mhm.
always, spoken what I've seen in visions and in dreams to be proved wrong. I've always wanted to be proved wrong. I've seen, like I said, from at least 7 years old, I've seen bloodshed. I've seen, the possibility of another civil war. I've seen, the underbelly of, systemic racism. I'm shockingly not shocked. And I think that hurts the most, the fact that this stuff has actually happened. It's sobering to have what kept me up at night come to pass. It's sickening, and it hurts my heart immensely. But honestly, I am not surprised.
Me either.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I like what you said that, you already had that epiphany to what was going to happen. And in fact, there's this book by Greg Braden. It's called The Isaiah Effect. And during the announcement of the virus in the Philippines, I wasn't really keen on buying this book. But the day before the lockdown, I just felt guided to buy the book of Greg Braden. And it's called The Isaiah Effect. And he talked about some of the things uh, that were explained there as a coming attraction to some things that were meant to happen. But he also mentioned in that book that there are certain things that we can use so that we will be able to reverse the situation and still remain collected regardless of what's happening. So thank you for bringing it up, because in that book, Greg Braden was saying you only need a very small percentage of the population to come together in prayer and meditation to reverse whatever situation there is. And this is very much in alignment with what Heart Math Institute is actually sharing to everyone, that even if there's this projection of many things that may be very negative, but if we decide to come together in our hearts and share heart energy with each other collectively, we still have the choice to reverse the circumstances. So it's something that I would like to ask the help of the three of you, because I know that the three of you are meditators and you also have your own way of prayer. Maybe it will put some new ideas to our audience how we can actually manage our own energy. Because like what Dr. Yolanda Dukes was mentioning earlier, you're actually responsible for your own reality. And if you manage your own reality very well, you can be a more beneficial energy. You can offer the rest of the community a more beneficial vibration. So
Then you become a beacon of light.
yeah, Dr. Dukes, it's I love what you said about being a beacon of light, but is there a particular practice that you actually do that might actually serve the rest of our viewers? Maybe they're not yet aware of it. What's your personal practice on it?
It's an understanding that comes a little bit with time. But when we begin to understand that everything that we see in reality is God, we can accept it. This is what it is, and it is God. Thank you, God, for showing me this. This is not the reality that I personally choose. And move on. We can't control everything. But when it's like when you say, oh, this is bad or this is negative, you're only drawing more bad and more negative. But when you see the big picture, it is God. The planet goes through things. But because we don't live for 2,000 years, we're not aware of all of these interesting dynamics in the microcosm that's happening. Accept it as God, whatever is happening. Thank you for revealing this into my life. I appreciate this understanding. I appreciate this reality. But this may not be what I choose right now. And move on. That's it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing it, Dr. Yolanda Dukes. Of course, with us in the metaphysical world, we very much appreciate and enjoy what you just said. But for some people who have a particular narrative, like what Reverend Adam was saying before, if you grew up in a particular community, religious community, where the concept of damnation and, things like that is mentioned to you many times often, then you begin to accept that as a form of punishment from source or higher consciousness. Can you please explain more about it, Reverend Adam?
Well, the way I view it is that being raised with the concepts of, as you mentioned, about damnation is a very troubling and abusive type system. And it took me a long time to realize that I was like with my psychic ability, let's put it that way, with my psychic ability and stuff. At first, because of how I was raised, I was raised to view the gifts I had as being some sort of satanic power, as something that was negative, as something that scarred me, so to speak. From the authority figures in my life's point of view. It wasn't until I realized that, well, I was being given these visions for a reason, to speak out the truth. Not necessarily that these things would come to pass, but that people would have the choice saying, if one event leads to another, it'll lead to another. And so fate is not a set thing. Time is not linear. Time is an ever expanding cycle, a circle of constant change. And so by being aware of the possibilities, we as individuals can make sure that either A, these events don't happen, or that we can separate ourselves and go back to source, and thus to see these negative things in a positive light. For me, it was about getting my truth out. Whatever happened after that, was not on me.
Yes.
All I can be is stay in my truth, saying, well, I'm not going to take part in this. Like Dr. Yolanda Duke said, these events are happening, but I'm going to do this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes.
having the view of damnation put upon you, a lot of people believe that, well, these end results have to happen because we are a fallen species, But the thing
Yeah.
is that we constantly have free will and choice. Do we choose to let these things happen, or are we going to be that small little butterfly that's going to change the whole course of history through the butterfly effect? All it takes is one person that affects the next person, that affects the next person. And it's the same way of moving away from damnation to salvation.
Yeah.
In essence, we are our own salvation. We can choose the positive or we can choose the negative. What we hold on to is all up to us.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Reverend Adam. We have Dr. Ro Guzman, who's watching from Bahrain, and she just made a comment on what you said. I like that time is not linear, hence we can collapse time. Do we share the same idea, Reverend Adam? That's your question.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. You got it.
Fantastic. I'm happy that someone's actually also reacting to what you just said, because I love what you mentioned about, it's a circular thing and it can expand, that one thing happens after another. And what Dr. Dukes mentioned earlier, that you're just seeing a tiny portion of what's truly happening, because we don't live for 2,000 years to see the bigger picture of what's about to come. Reverend Tina, do you want to add to what Reverend Adam said?
I think one of the things he said was my truth. So, I think that was very telling, and that is something that we all can expand upon, because all of our truths are different. And since they're all different, when you're looking at things that don't seem to be what you want them to be, if you begin to have empathy and compassion that their truth may be different, you can begin to release your feelings about it. Because at the end of the day, whether what I think is right and what I think is wrong, could be different from what you think is right and what you think is wrong. And simply because of that, the best thing we can all do is learn to manage our own emotions.
Yep.
When we start
Yes.
reacting and we start seeing all of, when we start feeling this angst or pull, to begin to address that in our own selves. The problem
Yes.
tends to happen is because we want everything outside of us to change. When it is not outside of us to change, it's what's inside. So instead of concentrating on that thing being different, it really comes back to how can you be different. It's very easy to project on everybody else, and it's very easy to say that thing over there is wrong, and to sit in our righteous indignation, but that doesn't solve it, and that doesn't
Yes.
make your life better. And
Yep.
so the best thing that you can do is start going, okay, why do I have such a strong reaction? And as I was just saying earlier, I had to get back to my center after watching these events. And so the first thing I asked myself was, why am I having such a strong reaction? And once I discovered what that was, I can always get back to the right side of it, because I'm going to now, how can I be part of a solution instead of amplifying the problem? See, sometimes, we're on, there's the continuum, and there's the continuum of what we see happening. And what typically happens is most people are focusing on the actual problem. So the problem gets bigger and bigger
Yes.
and bigger and bigger. And it isn't until people literally get saturated and it's like, oh my gosh, I've had enough, right? That they finally let it go and the solution can be revealed. But what if I told you that we can do that consciously in a few short minutes, instead of dwelling on that problem to where it's amplified so big that it seems to overwhelm us? We can begin to pull our attention away, because our attention is one of the biggest part of what makes things grow. We can pull our attention away, and we can decide deliberately to focus on the opposite, the solution. And that will change a lot and change pretty quickly.
Thank you for saying that, Reverend Tina. And Dr. Ru also made a comment. I agree with Reverend Tina. We want everything outside to change instead of doing the inner work. So something that I also want to add to what the three of you said, Greg Braden, a couple of years ago, he was sharing that there was a study made in Geneva that the moment you watch something on video and you're listening to someone talk in front of you in the screen, there's actually an energy exchange already from someone who's talking on video and you as the receiver of the information. That's why I love what you mentioned about the attention, that it's so powerful. It's one of the biggest contributors to enlarging that particular experience. And that's why I'm really trusting that there will be more metaphysicians who will have their own shows and be able to share all their ideas about how reality is actually created and experienced by oneself and the rest of the community. Because I think that it's so important for a lot of people to understand the nature of reality and how it actually starts with thought, like what Dr. Dukes kept mentioning last week. Everything starts with a thought. So that's all for now, everyone, and we'll be back after a short commercial.
We'll be back shortly. This is Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Connected ka na ba para laging updated sa mga bagong shows, promos, trending news, viral videos, events, o patok na OPM hits? Just follow us on Facebook at V81 Radio Manila. Simple lang, itype lang ang letter V81 Radio Manila. O, di ba madali lang? Kaya i-like at i-follow na. Want to see who will bring home the win? Get ready for Napalm Music Awards. Now back to Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Satnam, everyone. I'm back for Practical Magic. And earlier, Dr. Yolanda Dukes, Reverend Adam, and Reverend Tina were all sharing some of their best ideas about what's happening right now. And especially, I love what Dr. Dukes was saying earlier about, right now we think we're such in deep, challenging times because we're only seeing it from the scale of not seeing the way the rest of this global village will unfold 2,000 years later. And what Reverend Adam was saying that, one idea can actually grow and expand, and that this particular time is actually not linear. It's a matter of growing and expanding the experience. And also, what Reverend Tina was saying, our attention has a big part in making an experience even more dynamic, and at the same time how it can actually affect our own experience. So I also want to share this book to everyone. It's the book of Greg Braden. It's The Isaiah Effect. Before the lockdown in the Philippines, I wasn't really keen on buying a new book, but for some reason the day before President Rodrigo Duterte announced a lockdown in the Philippines, I just felt guided to get this book. And it was so timely because here in the book, Greg Braden was saying so many things were actually mentioned in the past that it was gonna cause a lot of chaos in the community. But because of the power of prayer and meditation, people were able to actually overcome whatever limitations they have. And, in metaphysics, we keep saying that our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, when you put them all together, it's gonna cause something for all of us, whether it's something that's pleasant or something that's unpleasant. So I want to go back to what Reverend Adam was saying about intuition and seeing things before they even happen as part of our spiritual gift. And I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Yolanda Dukes because I know she has a lot of amazing insights about this. Please take the floor, Dr. Dukes.
So I love what Adam said about seeing things before they happen. And I can only speak from my own experience. The realization that I could not save the world from the things that I saw coming was very profound, hurtful in some ways in the beginning, because I wanted everybody to know, you guys should all get some food. Oh my goodness, pick up toilet paper. Things may be getting rough in the future. And when I said things like that out loud, I was met with, oh, that's never going to happen. Oh, you're crazy or you're insane. And I realized then I can't save the world. I can't save anybody. I'm not here to save anybody. My intuition is my own intuition. And I can tell you when this pandemic started, I was not looking for food or toilet paper because I was prepared based on what my intuition said. So if you see things in your own awareness, prepare accordingly. It doesn't mean that there's always death and destruction. That is the universe's way of saying, I'm giving you a message to help you. Take it for what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you for sharing it, Dr. Dukes. It's amazing what you mentioned, that we get that inspired ideas, and it's really up to you if you're going to act on those ideas. But it's really good, of course, to be prepared. So
there was literally no toilet paper here.
Yeah. And I remember you even sharing something about a Filipino as well, about the dipper, the tabo. There was
Tabo, yeah. I was like, why are you guys panicking? There's alternatives. Like, really? It's like, this thing is not making you vomit out of your butt. What are you doing?
Yeah. So, but now we're laughing. But during that time, I know it caused a lot of pressure for a lot of people.
Yes.
And even my friends in the bodybuilding scene, they'd make their videos about what are we going to do because there's no gym, and they go to the groceries for meal prep and they can't buy the usual foods that they actually need to buy for meal prep for their bodybuilding thing, and they were all saying when they go to that counter for toilet paper, there's literally no toilet paper. So things like that, we're laughing all about it now, but I'm very sure during that time, a lot of people actually, felt very anxious about that idea. And honestly, Dr. Dukes and I, before we started the show, we were talking about the haircut and how she saw me from my regularly trimmed hair and how it just grew and grew and grew for about 3 months without getting a haircut. I was actually getting anxious already. So, how about you, Reverend Tina? What did you do during those periods of, you're not able to access anything, the regular services?
Um, you know, the pandemic hasn't really been any different for me. Other than I haven't been able to go and do any speaking engagements, like my speaking engagements and stuff got canceled. But I used to laugh before all of this happened and tell people I'm like Sandra Bullock in the movie The Net. Like I've always been kind of behind the scenes doing stuff. So like really this isn't much different for me because I typically am not in big crowds unless I'm going somewhere speaking. So still it really is just perspective. It really is just perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing it, Reverend Tina. So at least for you, it's an amazing thing because, like you mentioned, there was no big adjustment, and you mentioned it's actually just perspective. But we know that if you're someone who's been planning something for the rest of the year, you want to be able to maintain being cool, calm, collected, and at the same time productive. So how do you actually manage to do it? Especially, we know a lot of people are actually glued to watching the news or watching TV and just receiving information from whatever it is that they hear because apparently it's become a habit to just watch the news.
And yeah, so when we're watching the news constantly, we're allowing someone else to program their perspective because it's not just the word exchange, there's the energy exchange as well. So sometimes, when people are starting to feel bad, they could actually just make a small little switch to their habits, and they will see how they will actually start to feel better. I think one of the best things, though, to say is that we all have the ability to change our perspective in a few moments. Like where sometimes we make things so big, right? And they become overwhelming. But when you just come back to what you know to be true, first and foremost, you know that God is for you and not against you. If you know that to your core and you literally just start from that statement, then everything around you can change. There was one thing that was said, when we have different visions and when we see that things are happening and we have the forethought, we can also choose to uplift our vibration and actually have a different outcome. Sometimes, we don't talk about the fact that everything starts from a vibration. So remember, one of the things about manifestation is you have a belief and you have an expectation and then manifestation comes. So what if you change your expectation? So if instead of expecting this thing to be bad, what if I just decide I'm going to figure out what's good in this? And literally just in that, I start to change my perspective and allow new outcomes to show. I'm very much into not just spirituality, but the evolution of where science and spirituality are meeting. And I think Adam said some really great things when he was talking about time not being linear, and if you get into the concept of collapsing the wave and all that kind of thing, you can really change outcomes by changing your vibration, changing how you feel, changing how you look at things, because there are already so many different outcomes that are actually there. You can start choosing which one you line up with. That's a different way of looking at life.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Reverend Tina. And Reverend Adam, I know there's so much to expand on what you just said about collapsing time. And I know you have prayer rituals, you have spells that can actually move the situation differently from what has been projected. Can you please share more to us about how we can actually apply it in our own lives?
Well, I think the major thing is, pretty much been mentioned and stuff is, you turn inward to yourself. With the way time works is that we are all a portion of Source.
Mm-hmm.
Source is unboundable, fluid, ever-changing, and because it is ever-changing, we, as small portions of it, can change ourselves. And so, like Tina said, about, taking the negative and flipping it into a positive, is actually one of the best advice I have actually heard. And I mean, and the way she said it was very, very enlightening, because that's something I've honestly been struggling with lately, is that, as things had been mentioned, seeing these things from an early age and being instilled with fear. For me now, seeing these things come to pass, like what Yolanda said, honestly, there's nothing I can do to change others. I got my message across. What they do with it after that, is up to them. But for me, I can see things from a different perspective. What I can see is that some things, yes, were meant to be. But for me, it was more accepting that what I did see was true. I do have gifts, just like everybody else. And because at that time that I was seeing these things, I was being berated by an overbearing parent, that it was kind of my way of saying, it was Spirit's way of telling me that you are wanted, you are needed by a greater collective besides what has been thrust upon me. And so now, because of these things had started to come to pass, I can look at things from a greater perspective. I can see that because I've got that confidence now from, okay, so one thing led to another, and it did happen according to what I've seen. Now I can move beyond that fear. And in fact, I think I had one other premonition in the last couple weeks, but the nightmares have stopped. I can now push myself away from that. I don't see anything else really. And I think being able to move out of the cycle that I had seen, honestly, is part of the change in the consciousness of the planet. And so, like I had mentioned earlier about the whole butterfly effect, is that because at least one person said something, and another person heard it, who told another person, that in a way, it kind of came back to me through that wave of time, space, and now I'm free of it. And so now I can no longer be stuck through prescience. Now I'm free. And because I'm free, I can help others find their freedom. And so that's actually an aha moment I had, during this, during the break. And it's because of all you in our conversation here today. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
We
Yeah.
love you, Adam.
Thank you so much for that. Actually, Dr. Rowe is also saying that she likes the spells and turning inwards. And I know this is such a massive information for a lot of Filipinos who are listening and they're just freshly tuning into this kind of discussion, especially when we're talking about how your perspective can actually shape your reality and talking about greater perspective, seeing the bigger picture that's unfolding for you and the rest of the collective. This is actually a lot of information for someone to take in if they're just new to this subject. So with the many things that's happening around the globe that's going to take your attention away from what it is that you truly want, how do you think should someone manage that space-time, Reverend Adam, like you mentioned, especially you talked about expanding on Reverend Tina's changing the negative into that positive outcome. What's a basic spell, for example, a weekend spell that they can use if that's something that they want to apply in their own lives?
Well, first of all, we kind of got to go back to the concept of spells. Spells really aren't much different than any normal prayer. And in fact, having, the candles, the incense is more of a focus for the individual. Honestly, all you need is yourself. Any Wiccan or witch will tell you that when they help someone new to such practices, is that honestly a witch should be able to cast their spells blindfolded, hands tied behind their back, because all you have to do is go within. And so when I do most of my spell work, honestly, it's me sitting in a chair with a candle before me, and that's pretty much it. Is I go within to my inner temple, and that's where I do most of my workings. Is I go within. I use visualization techniques to imagine my inner temple, where I've got any tool or resource available, including like the astral records, as I believe it was Edgar Casey that mentioned it, the Akashic Library. And so by going within, you've got access to everything. You've got access to that energy web of everything that has been, is, and will be, because going back to the thing about time and space is a circle. It is a circle. It's not a straight line. You have access to everything immediately. You really do.
I love that discussion. You have access to everything immediately. This type of discussion, especially here in my place where a lot of people are thinking in linear terms, people think that, if you finish step one, then move on to step two, so that you're actually setting the pace and create the momentum for whatever it is that you're wanting to demonstrate, especially if you're so used to writing down your particular tasks at hand. So, Reverend Adam, for me, for example, I'm so used to having a planner. I'm so used to writing down things. And maybe in a way, it's very linear in terms of staying in the third plane. So, what would you suggest for someone like me uh, to flex my mind a bit on this matter?
Honestly, you're not the only one that uses a planner. I've got bipolar disorder. If it's not written down in like 5 different places and stuff, I'm going to forget it. And so I actually journal every day. And it may be linear, but I journal every day. And every once in a while, I'll go back and read old journals. I'll see where the cycles continue in my thoughts or in my practices or in my life, just events. I see how they're all interconnected. I see how they're connected to certain astrological signs or, the weather of the day. That is magic right there. When you can sit there and see how one thing leads to another, but leads right back to another, you see the cycle, Once you see
Yeah.
the cycle, you could break through out of the cycle if it's something that you want to change in your life. But you've got to recognize that you are indeed in a cycle.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Reverend Adam. And I know Dr. Dukes, you might have insights on this because one of the things that I've observed about Dr. Dukes for many years now, regardless of what's happening around the world, she just has this way of putting her focus on one thing and being able to actually accomplish those goals regardless of what's happening. And honestly, a lot of people have a difficulty holding on to making things demonstrate in their own lives, which can be a cause of frustration for a lot of people. So, Dr. Dukes, how do you actually do it? And what would you recommend to people who get frustrated when they don't get things done, especially in their timelines?
Oh my goodness gracious. Well, it's not that I get everything done. I mean, I have lists as well, things I'm working on accomplishing, and I just go off, just check things off as they happen. But the greatest realization really is that I can't control everything.
Yes.
All I have in truth is my truth and my state of being. I have nothing else. There's no other possessions. You know, there's a famous saying that my only possessions are my actions. That's it.
Yes.
That's all I
Yes.
truly have. Everything else is decoration for this linear experience.
Thank you for sharing it, Dr. Dukes. And something that I really enjoyed in our conversation one time is how you demonstrated the place you actually have right now and how in the beginning you were demonstrating one uh, one material after another to get to the momentum of actually having the place where you have now. Can you please share it to our audience? Because I think it's one of the most delightful stories you shared with me.
So we came to Dallas literally, I mean, broken and broke, physically broken and broke. And it can be a sobering as well as depressing experience. And he and I looked at each other and said, you know what? We're here for a reason. We've asked for something, and that's why we are right here in this situation. And when we confronted it that way, we realized we had asked for new jobs, new positions, new opportunities. So although the place we lived, we were not in love with, but we got the jobs that we wanted. So
Mhm.
see where you are. When you condemn where you are, or when you damn where you are, it damns you back. So we had a very happy approach to it. Okay, this is where we're at. Look what else is manifesting. Then the jobs came, then the money came. I said, okay, well, we're going to need to think about moving. And I went to bed every single night and said, I'm in the most perfect bed. I'm in my dream place. It's wonderful. I'm comfortable. I have everything I want. And that's exactly what I manifested. A bed from a furniture company that I'd never heard of, that is my dream bed. The most comfortable mattress, the best blanket that I could afford just happened to go on sale. It's comfortable, it's beautiful, it's relaxing. I got the colors I wanted. Everything came to pass because I wasn't sitting around saying, I don't know how this is going to happen. I don't know. I just sat in that energy. This is what I could control, how I felt. And I knew that things could be better for me. I knew that there was a place that I truly could afford, with the hardwood floors, the big bathtub, just enough space that was welcoming for my dog, that was quiet, that had a garage. Oh my goodness, there's 2 pools, just perfect for me. So I just sat with that energy. That's how I manifested where I am now.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Dukes, because it's super, super awesome, especially for me to hear it. I'm also demonstrating the bed as comfortable as you've been mentioning it. So I'm going to apply what you just said. So even something like that, this is what I keep sharing to our audience in the Philippines. The fact that you're already changing your words, something in the way you're sharing a new story of your life can actually shift the energy, and create a new attraction for you because you're deciding to change the simple things. Even the use of our words is a gift, for me at least. It's a
Yes.
spiritual that when you use that spiritual gift, you actually create a new experience for yourself. So it's a very simple statement that you actually mentioned, but I'm going to apply it and I let everyone know what happens next with that practice. And I'm
Yeah.
sure thank you for that, Dr. Dukes. Reverend Tina, we talked about this a lot with all our shared fondness for Catherine Ponder's materials about, especially last week, about forgiveness and manifesting. Do you want to expand on that? Because we both know forgiveness and manifesting actually sit side by side each other.
Absolutely. Forgiveness of yourself, most importantly, because if not, then you continue to repeat situations. One of the things when in my coaching certification, one of the things that I make sure that the people who take it can do before they're certified is I teach them to turn an enemy into a friend without talking to them. And the reason that I choose to do that and the reason why it's so powerful is because if there's someone who you don't like, you're calling them an enemy, and you now can turn them into a friend, then you're willing to go inward and work on yourself and allow the good to come into your life. You're willing to release the things that you're holding on to. And that is really the core of forgiveness work. And that's why that we do that. I think I love what Dr. Dukes just said. She said it was a quotable. I wanted to go get a pen and write it down. She said something, um, if you think of it as the situation as being damned, it's going to damn you back. And so I was like, wow, that is very, very powerful. But can you imagine the flip side is also true? That if you're looking at it from a position of, wow, this is an amazing opportunity, you will see more opportunities. If you're looking at it from a place of love, then more love has to come. So it's just a way of allowing whatever good that you want to be able to show up. I was just reading not just Catherine Ponder, but Edwene Gaines. She talks a
I
lot.
love her.
Yeah, in her book, what is it, The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. But she is huge in forgiveness work. That is a big pillar of that is a big pillar of all of her work. And I think that when you look at the situation, you can actually be doing forgiveness work during your entire waking hours because you're going to constantly run into situations that you're not really, you're not happy about. And instead of taking those situations at that point and dwelling in them, you can start to morph them right now. You can start going, okay, I'm not sure why I'm here. As Dr. Dukes was saying when they got to Dallas, there's something in this for me. Like just attesting to that. Even when it seems weird or, you don't like it, there's something in this for me. When you change the way you look at it, then things start to open up and you see a lot more possibilities. And that is why forgiveness work is so crucial.
Yes.
Thank you so much for that, Reverend Tina. And I know, even for myself, because I love what Reverend Tina mentioned about last week, we had a conversation in Zoom after the show. I'm going to share a bit about it because Reverend Tina was saying, forgiveness is like peeling onions. There are layers of forgiveness when sometimes you think you have forgiven the whole experience and then there's a trigger factor. Something you think new is coming up, but the truth is the resentment was still there. You just didn't know how to release it. So it's coming up to the surface so that this time you can actually let it go. So, Reverend Tina, can you please expand on it? Why we have to keep peeling off the layers of resentment, because sometimes we think that we've already let it go, but it's just manifesting a different way because it's still in our subconscious.
Absolutely. And so that's how I would want everyone to begin to approach their problems. Anytime you have that fear or that thing that comes up that triggers you, say, oh my, this is here so that I can release it. It's showing up again so I can release it. Because, we've sometimes, I think our reasoning mind has done a number on us. As a matter of fact, it's not sometimes, it's all the time. We think because we've gotten something and we've been able to memorize it, that means we understand it. But we have more mechanisms. We are not just our mind, we are our body, we are our energy field. And so while you may have gotten it in the mind, your body needs time to catch up. And so that's how sometimes where you could be saying, and women, Adam, not excluding you, but where women are really, really good at saying, I'm okay when you're not. Like,
Yes.
so instead of reaching out for that help and somebody says, how you doing today? I'm okay, when you really want to pull them apart and, pull them aside and say, right now, and I feel like my life is falling apart. Well, we've been taught that, it's not just the words, it's actually the feeling too. So sometimes, not just sometimes, all the time, your mind might start understanding this intellectually, but your body needs to catch up. Your cells are holding this. There's a thing called cellular memory. We understand it in sports more than anything. So when you see a great basketball player, for instance, who is practicing his jump shot, who's practicing that free throw, like if you notice, the form becomes the same all the time. And so then once the repetitiveness happens, he can do it in his sleep. He doesn't have to he can close his eyes and he can shoot that jump shot. Why? It's cellular memory. So when you've had these hurts, you memorize them in your cells. So just getting it with your head is not enough to completely release it. It needs to be released out of your cells as well. And so while we all want to believe, okay, today I have a divine healing and it's over, typically, while yes, you may have had that healing, you still have layers that are going to come up. And now that you know this, when it comes up, you can look at it differently and begin to address it on a different level.
Thank
Oh,
you
I
for
love
sharing it, Reverend Tina. Yes.
Yeah, that brings to mind what Reverend Tina said about that cellular memory. Think about things you're saying after a relationship ends, when you feel that someone has broken your heart. Oh my gosh, all men are bad. And what are you going to attract? More of exactly the same. Oh, or all women are gold diggers. Well, you're going to keep attracting that. So when my intuition opened and my relationship ended, because this was all terrifying to him, the things I was seeing, the things I was experiencing were terrifying for that man. He walked out and I said, you know what? This is going to be the best thing that ever happened to me. I don't see it yet. I don't even feel it yet. I'm sitting here crying in my soup, but this is going to be the best thing that happened. And truly, the spark of love that came next has been extraordinary, really extraordinary. So don't pinch yourself off from an amazing amount of love because you've had your heart broken by somebody.
Yes. Thank you for sharing it, Dr. Dukes. And I know it's such a beautiful thing that you just mentioned, because sometimes our limited thinking can actually get in the way of experiencing the fullness of a new life experience, especially when it comes to relationships. Because, of course, a big amount of all the efforts that we put into our work, into our labor, and whatever we harvest, we really want to share it with someone. And
Oh
it's just
yeah.
natural that we want to experience the fullness and the joy that comes out of the experience of having that. So I'm sure for you and your new partner, it's such an amazing experience because you talked about him a lot. Do you want to expand on what was the relationship like before demonstrating him into your life, and how maybe I and other viewers can actually learn from it.
Well, in simplicity, I thought that I was happy. I thought that everything was going just fine. But looking back, there wasn't that sense of camaraderie. There wasn't those deep, loving conversations. I was not being held and pressed the way I needed to be. You know, when you're not getting what you've never had, you don't know that you're missing it. So this
Yes.
relationship opened up all sorts of beautiful things in my heart, in my soul, in my spirit. And he's brought these, helped me to bring these opportunities forward. He's helped me to facilitate the shows. He's helped to prop me up when I needed a little bit of help. That support, that compassion is a beautiful thing that I personally have never witnessed in relationships. So I didn't know that it was possible. So if I had kept saying the same old thing, well, that's just good enough. Oh, well, that'll do. It went from that'll do to this is extraordinary.
Wow. Thank you for sharing it, Dr. Dukes. And I know we learned so much. Thank you for that, Tina, bringing up the term cellular memory. Dr. Rogesman shared she liked that. And Dr. Dukes, I know relationships are one of the best, most fulfilling life experiences that we can have. And I love what you just talked about, how you want to be in a co creative space with someone who's actually supportive of your mission, especially you, because I know you're doing a lot for metaphysics. But before we expand on that, we'll just pause for a short commercial.
We'll be back shortly. This is Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Pagpatak ng 7, dapat lahat nakatutok sa amin. Catch these programs at 7 p.m. Pacific Time. Talk Shop Asia Global, USA Edition with Rolly Pagaspas and Rosario Cahucom Brad Perry. Home Not Alone sounds from home with Papa Gio and Freedom in Christ with Felsen. It's all about entrepreneurship, entertainment, and enlightenment. Back to back to back programs at 7. LA at 7. LA at 7. Exclusively on V81 Radio, Los Angeles. Kabayan, nahuhomesick ka ba? I-download na ang aming mobile app at mag-enjoy sa mga kantang Tatak Pinoy and feel like you're home. The V81 Radio mobile app, available in the App Store and Google Play Store. V81 Radio mobile app, free now, free forever. Now back to Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Only here on V81 Radio, Manila.
Satnam, everyone. I am Reverend and I'm back for Practical Magic. So I'm here with my colleagues from the International Metaphysical Ministry. We're talking about cellular memory and how our past experiences can actually affect our present situation, and especially the things that we would like to demonstrate in our personal and professional lives. And we moved on to the topic of having a partner that will actually be someone who will be supportive of your goal, vision, mission, whatever it is that you'd like to experience this year. And honestly, for me, I think it's just so important to be in that space where you have someone who can share your vision for the year, because so many things can happen during the year, and having someone to share it with who will be uh, who will be a wonderful support system for you, and you can also be a wonderful support system for that person. It will just be an awesome match. So I want to ask Dr. Dukes to share more about it, because relationships do play a big role in manifesting the bigger goals or the big vision that you want for this year and many years to come. Is there anything else that you'd like to add, Dr. Dukes?
I would say don't attempt to create from a place of desperation, whether it be a relationship or anything else you're looking for. So if you're single, tell the universe, I'm single and I'm okay. But I also know that there's someone out there for me. I know that there's the perfect person out there for me, the person who's going to love me and honor me and respect me. But for this time being, I'm going to be as happy as I can be. I'm going to date myself. I'm going to love myself. I'm going to treat myself. And then you do what you can behind the scenes to literally pretend that they're there. Make space in your life for that person. If you can make room in your closet for that person, make a nightstand for that person. And you're really showing the universe that this is what I intend to create. This is the partnership that I intend to create. If you have the opportunity to get yourself some beautiful red sheets, it'll bring passion into your bedroom, believe it or not. Those little things are actions to the universe. You're setting yourself up for a successful relationship. That's my advice.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Lukes. And I again heard the red sheets from you. It's like the nth time I'm
Because they
hearing it. So
work.
all right. So it's something that I'm gonna work on because I have a red table but not red sheets. All right. So anyway, Reverend Tina, Reverend Adam, I know both of you have a lot of things to share about relationships. So ladies first, go ahead, Reverend Tina.
I like what Dr. Dukes was just saying, and I just wanted to add to it. I want you to feel forward. So I want you to begin to feel that you are the shit, excuse my language, but I want you to feel that way. I want you to feel like if you're looking for a guy, every guy wants me, and the best part of it is the perfect one shows up. And this one, guess what? He's the exact right height. He is the exact right build. He's the exact right, whatever that exact right is for you. I want you to feel that, because when you start to feel it, you start to be it. And then it has no other choice but to come to you. So feel into it. Don't make it a future event. It's now. I am worthy to have the best relationship. I am worthy to have someone who loves me exactly for me. I am worthy of having someone that I do not have to dim my light in order to fit into his world. As a matter of fact, we fit into each other like a hand on a glove. Literally start to really feel yourself into the thing that you want. And even if it isn't relationships or whatever thing it is that you want, because we've been talking about goals and visioning, feel into it. I am an influencer. I know that's a big thing that a lot of people have been writing in about when they've been watching these shows. How do they become an influencer? Feel into it. My voice is meant to be heard. I know that people want to hear me. I know that there are people who have similar experience that I have, and they want to express them. They love when I express mine because it makes them feel a little bit better about their life. And I love it. Like when you start to feel into it that way, it can't help but come.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Reverend Tina. I love what you just said about feeling it forward, if I heard that correctly. It's such an amazing thing. You like shortcut everything and then I moved into action. A lot of the things that Reverend Tina says makes you want to take action, even simple phrases, because you know how to shorten messages, and it just propels a person to take action. And Reverend Adam, I know you have a lot of things to share about relationships, so please go ahead.
Well, for me personally, I've been through many, many very rocky relationships, and it goes back to Neil Donald Walsh in Conversation with God said that, there are only two sponsoring thoughts. There's love and then there's fear. Being raised in a lot of fear, I jumped from relationship to relationship to feel loved. But all I was producing, all I was manifesting was fear. And so, the people around me, saw this box of what they saw as Adam. Outgoing, hypersexual, just out there. what they didn't realize is I was suffering from a very long, intense manic episode. And so a lot of those behaviors was not actually me in my core. And so I think it was my second marriage that, I ran towards what was instilled in me by my parents. My life wasn't going well the way I was doing it at that time. And so I actually ran towards fundamentalist Christianity to get some sort of structure, foundation in my life, even though I absolutely abhorred it. And so after that relationship fell apart, that's when I really started working hard on finishing my bachelor's with, the University of Metaphysics, and actually starting to apply those things in my life. Well, with my own relationships, it was actually the love of my life was actually a former, still a student, I guess you could still say. I had helped her, find witchcraft in her life, and I was really close with her mother, was actually a close friend of mine. And so it was kind of interesting that seems like everyone else knew that there was sparks going on between me and her, but we had no freaking clue. And so she had also me in this box / pedestal because the teacher-student relationship had been there. That's about the time I started having really bad health issues. I mentioned before, I have an abutted nerve, degenerating discs. Before the pandemic, I was a DoorDash driver, but with the way my back started twinging out, the issues with the pandemic, and being, very highly susceptible to, diseases going towards, the autoimmune system, I had to take a step back. And so there was a lot of fear, because there's certain things that in, the American culture that a man is supposed to do. And here I am, infirm, stuck at home, not being able to even pay bills. And I had to move from fear. This forced me to move from fear to love, because she has stood by me. She's been a rock of support. And that's something I never had. If I wasn't providing something for my partner, in the view that I thought, I was failing, and the relationships would disintegrate. And so this box came out, and she saw just how much of a broken person, I was. And I didn't realize just how broken I was. It had been mentioned that, pain and anguish is almost like onions. You got to pull the layers off. And this whole time period, from the moment I was pretty much incapacitated and stuff, has been nothing but shadow work, and looking at those things in my life that I wanted to change and manifest from fear to love. And this was the perfect partner for me to get through this. And she has been a rock. She's been, my salvation. Her daughter is the love of my life. She's, I always wanted a daughter. I knew I would have a daughter. I just didn't realize she was born before I actually met her, because at that time I was separated from Ashley's mother. I hadn't had anything to do with them for a long time. And, 6 months after Autumn was born, me and Ashley got together, and I've been daddy ever since. And so it wasn't until being pushed between a rock and a hard place within myself that I was able to move from fear to love. And I highly recommend people look into Conversations with God series, because it came into my life really early, and I really, really wish that I would have really taken it to heart so much sooner. But I also believe that if it wasn't for the things that happened in my life, I would not be where I am now. I would not be with who I am now. And I would not be manifesting my childhood dream, doing shows like this, and getting my own ministry going. And so that's what I would have to say about relationships, is moving from fear to love, from disconnection to unity.
Thank you for sharing it. I'm clapping my hands because I know it's not easy when people talk about how vulnerable they are. And especially for me, it takes a lot of, I don't know, it's just difficult for me to also ask for help. So until I encountered the book Aladdin's Lamp by Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, which I just read last year. Actually, I don't have access to the actual book. I just read the audiobook because it was recommended to me by a friend. And how Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen, they were talking about how difficult it is for the, when you're a guy and you're gonna ask for help, it's just so difficult for you to actually get things done. But they were also saying that learning how to ask for help is part of your abundance consciousness, because the moment you learn how to ask for things, you're also applying a Christ teaching, which is ask and you shall receive, seek and you will find, knock and it will be opened for you. So thank you for sharing it, Reverend Adam. And I know that Dr. Anita Caprice, one of our colleagues as well, she has very practical interpretations of the Bible. And it's something that maybe next time I can guest her on the show with the three of us. She's one of the most amazing people I also met in the university. So anyway, with regard to your recommendation about Neil Donald Walsh book, Dr. Ro was saying love and fear. Yes, fear is the opposite of love, not hate. Is that correct? She's asking you. I read that somewhere, perhaps in the same book of Neil Donald Walsh.
Yes, yes, definitely. Love and fear are two sides of the same coin, but it's more about whether you are disconnected from source or whether you are in that unity consciousness. And so the thing is those are the two ultimate sponsoring thoughts. What we know is thoughts lead to words that leads to actions. And so if your actions are not in tune to unity, you need to go back to the sponsoring thought. And Neil Donald Walsh teaches that in order to change those sponsoring thoughts, you got to start from the other end, look at your actions, move to your words, which will change your sponsoring thought. And so that's definitely something to contemplate when it comes to that disconnection to unity consciousness. And so, yes, love and fear are diametrically opposed, yet ultimately similar. But it's all about connection and interrelation.
Thank you for sharing it. You know how how we talk about relationships now, and how certain things that you feel you needed assistance and that the person came into your life at the right time to support you and your vision. Uh, I have a question. How do you differentiate it now from a lot of other mystics say that you have to be self-sufficient on your own? And how do you differentiate it now from what they're saying that you have to differentiate what you're capable of doing and separate it from what your other partner is able to do for you? You're not supposed to be dependent on each other, because I think you can't live a life where not one of you, you're in a relationship, one of you will always be vulnerable. It's impossible that in one way or another you're not going to be vulnerable at some point, because that's life happening. Sometimes you're strong at certain things. You may be strong right now on the material aspect of your life, but sometimes emotionally you need the support of the other person to carry you through situations. What's your take on it, Reverend Tina? And I'll ask Dr. Dukes and Reverend Adam later.
I feel that, as I said earlier in the show, working and going inward first is so very important, because everything that shows up on the external, including a relationship, is going to be a reflection of what you have going on internally. And so while it seems like we need to be dependent, but then that is going to cause some angst or something down the line. So sometimes I think when somebody compliments you, because let's say you're not good at maintaining the home and the other person is good at maintaining the home. That's not a dependency. And so sometimes
Yes.
I think sometimes we give language to things and that really aren't taken in the right context, I think is what I'm trying to say. So when you present yourself as your whole self and you've been doing your inner work, and then you find somebody who has been doing their inner work and they're whole, you will complement each other. And that's not dependency.
Thank you
Complementing
for
and
that.
dependency is two different things. And so that's how I would want you to change how you look at it. Don't look at it as a dependency or as a need. Look at it as a compliment because you are meant to be complimented. Pleasure. Look at it that way.
Thank you for sharing that, Reverend Tina. And actually, I share that same point of view because I think that's the point of having a relationship where you share certain things with the person. But of course, it's just natural that you're not going to be 100% alike because if that's the case, then why be in a relationship with a person in the first place? You might as well hang out with another friend of yours. Uh, how about you, Dr. Dukes?
Definitely. The contrast is definitely what's exciting about our relationship because we recognize, of course, we are two completely different people. And we share some views, but of course not all the same. And what we see in differences, we share a perspective. I have no desire to make him feel what I feel, and he has no desire to make me feel what I feel. But in sharing a perspective, I go, oh, well, maybe I hadn't thought about it that way. But when we talk about what Adam said about receiving and having a difficult time is not being a provider, I want to remind you that with the left hand, we receive, and with the right hand, we give. And through
Yes.
that energy exchange, it is indeed going through our heart. It is a full circle. So it's meant to happen at some point. And it's okay to be weak, to feel weak in a moment. It's okay to be vulnerable in a moment because in that vulnerability is when you truly find your strength.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Dukes. It's such a powerful thing. And honestly, I know about the right and the left hand, but now I love that you just said that it comes full circle and it touches the heart area. It's very beautiful. It's the first time I heard it.
Yeah,
And thank you.
I just made that up. So good luck.
Awesome.
It was really
All
good.
right. All right. And Reverend Adam, I know that whatever it is that you experienced during the lockdown is actually your abundance experience. Because I think that's something that the infinite mind, the creative intelligence, is also trying to give you a reward, a harvest. Sorry for that, for all the good that you have done. So it's but natural for you to actually experience it. So, congratulations. It's not easy to talk about our weakness. And at the same time, I love the beauty of you sharing how delightful it was to be cared for, to experience that the universe is actually taking care of you through the people around you. And you saying that your daughter will actually come into your life, but she was born before you actually met her because it talks a lot about our experience of a soul family.
Mhm.
Yes. Is
Absolutely.
there something you'd like to add?
No, you really touched upon it, and I'm glad that you brought up the concept of soul families, because I'd always been interested in the concept very very early on, and in fact, it wasn't until later in my life that I understood that I had discovered the concept of polyamory, and I'd always resonated with that, and I realized that at first I thought because of my childhood and stuff that it was me seeking to be loved, but what it really was is the fact that love should be multiplied, not divided. And so the concept of polyamory, unfortunately, most of them focus on the whole romantic thing, but it's the whole spectrum of love. And in fact, the Greeks had what, 6 to 8 different terms that they used for types of love. And the concept of soul families or tribes is very interconnected with that. Is because, like, some people believe that, you know, there are a certain number in a soul group. But the thing is I think we're all kind of drawn together through the invisible web, and that even our IMM family is literally a soul group. We were called to this business. We were called to these particular classes, and that interbinds us together. You know, we all share that same common love of metaphysics, and it was one man through his own experiences that brought us all together. And so, yes, soul families definitely do exist. Yeah. This family that I am a part of here in my domestic situation, I'd had for decades and didn't realize I had it. It wasn't until I had my rock bottoms and stuff that I was really able to just let go, open myself up, and then bam, right in front of my face was what I was seeking the whole time. But I was still stuck in that fear mentality. And so I wasn't ready to accept it.
Thank you so much for that, Reverend Adam. It's such a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I cherish that soul family that we have, especially with the International Metaphysical Ministry. I know so many people are actually able to benefit from the shows that we do from last week up to this week. And I trust that I can have the three of you again, you know, maybe in the next coming episodes of the show, even for putting things in perspective. I know so many people are excited and are actually getting the good benefit of this, especially for our new students in the school who are also launching their metaphysical practice. With very interesting times where they're launching their online practices now because of our interesting situation. So, any last words before we actually end the show, Dr. Dukes?
Be in your love. That's my advice for anyone listening. Be in your love.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. And Reverend Tina?
Yeah, I think that's perfect. You know, love is the answer. And so feel forward into that. Be disciplined into love. You know, love and discipline don't even sound like they go together, but they really do. We can allow our emotions to kind of run us in different directions every day. But what if you get up in the morning and you start with love? Find one thing, I don't care what it is, to fall in love with. The cup of coffee, anything. Fall in love with something and let that vibration ooze from you for the rest of the day, and watch how your day changes.
Yes. Thank you for sharing it. So beautiful. I love coffee. Dr. Dukes loves coffee. Reverend Adam also loves coffee. Thank you for that. And Reverend Adam, go ahead, please. What are your last words for before we end the show?
Honestly, Tina covered it. Honestly, there's no way I could even really touch upon that. You said it masterfully. So
well, that came from you, my dear. It came from you sharing your stories so vulnerably. Like, that came from you.
Yeah, we appreciate that, Adam.
Yeah.
We need more men to understand that it is okay to be where you are. And there are good women out there that are willing to support you and love you through it until things change, turn around. But thank you for sharing that. It's important.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing it. It's such a
We
beautiful
honor your
thing.
journey.
Yeah, I know we're gonna have more of this. So anyway, I actually don't want to end the show because it feels like we're having a family conversation with your soul family. Like what Tina said, you don't always get this kind of conversation just anywhere. But we have to move on to the next portion of the show, and we want to acknowledge the following. Please turn. Please put
put
on
on
the
the
board
board
might.
my
First, I want
first
to
I
thank
want to thank
Unity
Unity
Philippines
Philippines
and
and
Benedictine
Benedictine
International
International
School.
School.
They helped
They
me
helped
out
me
with
out
the
with the
start.
start,
And I
and
also
I
want
also want
to
to
acknowledge the
acknowledge the
International
International
Metaphysical
Metaphysical
Ministry,
Ministry,
University of
University of
Sedona,
Sedona,
and
and
University of
University of
Metaphysics.
Metaphysics.
I know
I
my
know my
friends have
friends
a
have
lot of
a lot
things
of
to
things
share
to share
about
about
university.
university.
Let's
Let's
start with
start with
Reverend
Reverend
Adam.
Adam.
Well, like I said,
said,
it changed my life. It honestly changed my life. It came into my life before I was for it. As soon as I was ready for it, it manifested in my life. I recommend it to interested in changing their life.
Thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Yes,
Yes,
Reverend.
Reverend.
Um, I
I
think
think
soul
soul
family
family
is
is
such a
such a
word.
word.
By
But
also studying at the University of Metaphysics, I found a soul family. I'm able to have conversations that I haven't been able to have on a regular basis. Like, it's not just one here, one there. I can literally have these conversations on a regular basis. And that has, I mean, put such a light in my soul that can never be dampened. So I'm really happy to be here.
Thank you for sharing it, Reverend Tina. Please go ahead, Dr. Dukes. I know you have so much to share about the university.
oh my gosh. Oh, it's where my heart found a home. It's where it's confirmation. It was absolute confirmation for me. I know there are some very staunch thinkers when you have only experienced one thing. And I've always been a very out of the box thinker. So certain things, religious wise, just didn't make sense to me. I don't mean that as an insult to religion, but I could not understand that if God has sent me here, how could he punish me for not finding the way back home? That just didn't resonate with me. So I have had wonderful opportunities to go to different churches, different schools of thought. And I found this on my journey. And it's a never ending journey. This has given me permission to continue to expand, to continue to grow, to continue to love, and to be a friend to my fellow metaphysicians, to be helpful to my fellow metaphysicians and new students coming in. And I thank Dr. Masters for that and all the participants, the beautiful people that have taken their time to have conversations with me as well that I would not have been able to have. We're all sort of kind of isolated in these situations. And through these new formats, we can reach out, we can touch each other through our heart centers and still get what we need. And I appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing that, Dr. Dukes. And one of the things that people ask me, you're already done with your first college degree. Why are you still studying further? So I know why I'm doing it, but I want to ask Dr. Dukes because she took another doctorate degree with the university. Can you please share more about it, Dr. Dukes? Why did you decide to take another doctorate degree with University of Metaphysics?
Because as a past life regressionist, they have a program that I was just interested in. It's, again, it's not about going somewhere. It's just about personal interest. So if I was going to read these books anyway, so why not? And I was going to read them and probably blog post on it. So why not just go ahead and do the whole thing? I
Yeah.
was already on that journey. So it just made sense to me.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing it, Dr. Dukes. And, I want to share to all Filipino parents and maybe our viewers in other parts of the globe. If you prepay the doctoral program, you're only going to pay $990. And if you're going to get the easy payment plan, it's only $90 down payment and $25 per month for the 48 installments. And honestly, in my adult life, I know that the reason why I'm able to stay collected during these times, it has a lot to do with my metaphysical perspective And I am very grateful that I have this content and amazing family. You met some of them, Dr. Dukes, Reverend Tina, and Reverend Adam. I consider them part of my family. It's really amazing that you can have conversations like this and be able to get yourself reminded that a lot of times the things that you're concerned about or you're worried about, it's actually all in your hands. But you also need the right people to talk to get you out of a stuck situation. So next, please. I want to thank Dr. Anita Caprice, Dr. Diana Vihuni, Dr. Cindy Palos, Anthony Benton Brown, my brother, Dr. Yolanda Dukes, of course, all of you, Tina, Reverend Adam, uh, Dr. Stephen Cosmina and his wife, Tene Cosmina, Dr. Kathleen Riley of Heart Math and Awake TV, Jennifer Hill, who's also part of Awake TV. And by the way, I'm guesting on her show for the Coalition for Global Unity on January 18. So stay tuned, everyone. And for those of you who would like to know more about marketing, whatever content, business, product, or service you have, please do get in touch with Tina. Social media is available to everyone, but we still want to use our money, effort, and time wisely. So get in touch with Tina and Dr. Dukes. How will people get in touch with you in case they want to connect with you?
They can always go to my website at www.perspectivemetaphysics.com, or they can find me on Facebook, message me, reach out, let's have a conversation, schedule a consult, whatever you need.
All right. Thank you for that. And how about for you, Reverend Adam? How can they get in touch with you?
I think the best way would be my website. That would be revadamhayden.weebly.com. I have all my social media contacts on there, my services, ways to get a hold of me. So yeah, that would probably be the best way. And hopefully I'll manifest enough money and I'll actually buy my domain name.
Fantastic. And so it is. You know, I have a friend, she did buy her domain name, but she gets paid $2,000 per advertisement on her blog because she's such a fantastic digital marketer, and she hasn't even bought the domain name because there was enough traffic that her website was generating, and she's a fantastic digital marketer. So big companies actually love to advertise on her website. So I think it's really a matter of how confident you are in what you're doing. So we'll never know. And Reverend Tina, how can people get in touch with you?
Through Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn is probably the best way. I have a lot of different sites, so after they get in touch with me through social media, I'd be happy to send them to the most appropriate site, whether it's, metaphysics, it's happyhealthyWholeRich.com. And if it's about business, it's clientattractionsystems.net. So, but they can just get in touch with me on Facebook, and then I can just send them in the right direction.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. So it's really fantastic. And for those of you who want to get in touch with me, you can send me a post mail. Of course, I'm kidding. So anyway, I had such a great time tonight. Thank you so much, Dr. Dukes, Reverend Adam, Reverend Tina. And, it's such a fantastic energy when you have a pool of people who actually believes in the power of setting intentions, getting certain goals done for you to get whatever vision that you want for yourself. And at the same time, be able to keep track of it because you have a support system that can actually hold space for you. I keep talking about holding space for your goals, for your intentions, because it's so important to carry you through the rest of the year. So thanks everyone for tuning in. And I want to invite everyone for the simple affirmation from Unity. And we can just simply close our eyes and affirm it together. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is and all is well. So anyway, everyone, thanks so much. I trust that you all are able to pick up useful tools, useful perspectives in your own life. And remember, you are the magic you've been waiting for.
Consistently delivering the very best in metaphysics. Here in Practical Magic, your practical mystic source. Till next time, only here on V81 Radio, Manila. Tunog Pinoy, Tatak Pinoy, your all hits, all Pinoy digital radio station in South Manila. This is V81 Radio.
Ito ang paborito ng bawat Pilipino. Basta all hits, all Pinoy, panalo. Merong kwentong iyakan at tawanan. Kahit nasaan ka man, ito'y mapapakinggan.